Our beautiful viewers, welcome to another episode of the Julumna podcast. So we have been out of the space for a very long time, but currently we are back. To our returning subscribers, our veterans, we say thank you for joining us. And to our new family, our new babies, welcome to the fraternity and be engaged. And to those ones who feel like we have left them behind, please don't leave us in the boat. Let's sail together. So today we shall delve into a conversation with one of our very talented lawyers in the country currently. She's called Nyamal Gadwich. So I will suggest to read her bio because I think it's too much for me to be able to complete it or read it offhand. So Nyamal is a graduate of Awaso University. She was also the Vice President of South Sudanese Student Union here in Awaso University. She is currently an intern at the African Union Peace and Security Department. She's also an advocate at Girls, Not Brides. She's also a public relations officer for Connect to the World. She's also 6'1". So I think she will not do the short guys. So short guys, I think, stay out of our space. So Nyamal, how are you?
I'm very, very good. Thank you for having me this live.
We are glad that you have answered our call and you have showed up to our podcast. How has life been?
Well, life has been good.
Life has been good. Wow. Could you elaborate or expand much more into your bio? Because I feel like it's too heavy for me to be able to explain it into details. Mm-hmm. You know, working in AU is not an easy thing, or being an intern there. You can tell our viewers, how did you manage to get into the AU space? How did you manage to graduate? Being a girl that also bagged a degree in law, things like that. I think our viewers would be interested to get much more details on how you have been able to manage to maneuver around those particular areas of life.
Thank you so much for having me this live. I think when a bio is actually read from a book or something, it's a little bit more exaggerated than it is.
Really?
Besides expounding, I'll also try to, reduce it to a way that we can also relate on that space.
Yeah.
So my name is Nyamal, Nyamal Garwejgoin, as you have already mentioned.
Yes.
So in my position at the African Union, I am an intern with Peace and Security Department.
Right.
But the specific unit is post-conflict reconstruction and development.
Right.
So with this unit, what we do basically is countries or societies that are transitioning from conflict or from a wartime to peace times, we sort of help them on how to, navigate that transition, whether it means to hold the perpetrators accountable or reestablish institutions or, mental health awareness, how to deal with the traumas on a personal level. So I am an intern, so basically what I do is more of assisting with achieving these goals or this kind of work that we do. And then on the other hand, as you already mentioned, I am a lawyer. I graduated from Hawassa University just a year ago. Yeah. So still a fresh graduate in the market.
All right.
Yes. And then with Connect to the World. So Connect to the World is it's an initiative, youth-led initiative here in Ethiopia.
Okay.
So what it does mostly is they try to help the youth to understand what diplomacy is. For example, navigating the AU system, UN system, and the other aspects of diplomacy, because diplomacy is very wide. It's as wide as it can be. It encompasses everything from the political space to even fashion and everything else. So basically, we try to help the youth here in Ethiopia, we're based here in Ethiopia, we help them on how to understand what diplomacy is and how can they actually be included. So we basically give them a platform where their voices are heard and they can be able to contribute to the greater good of our continent. And with Girls Not Brides, which is my favorite role, honestly.
You like being a girl, eh?
Very passionate about it. I would choose to be a woman in my next life.
Being a boy too. That's good.
I bet you do. Mm-hmm. So basically with Girls Not Brides is a global association. It's a mixture, or it's a coming together of different associations that are trying to help girl child education be at the place where we want it to be. So I'm an advocate on there. Mostly it's work online. So I joined it in 2022. And normally what we try to do is, girl child marriage is, very, very, it's a big, big problem, especially in a society like ours in South Sudan.
Yes.
So I try to be a part of a solution in whichever way that I can. And I think that will be all. So I'm a public relations officer for the Connect to the World, and
You didn't say you're 6'1".
At the end.
You didn't say you're 6'1".
It's actually 6'2", Tesla. I don't give them hope.
6'2". Okay, my brother's outside there. The lady is 6'2", She's not 6'1", as I read earlier. Sorry for the error. So the 5'11s cannot work.
friends. We can put them in the bro zone.
Bro zone, is height an issue?
It's a very, very big
But
issue.
it's good that we be tall in the pockets, I guess.
That is very, very important.
Very important. How you are a VP or Vice President for the union in Awasa University?
I think beyond all of that professionality,
Absolutely.
the most important thing is I'm a Nuer girl.
Yeah.
So I'm a South Sudanese from the Upper Nile region of our country.
Okay.
With the students' leadership that you just mentioned,
Yeah.
this was during my undergraduate degree.
Okay.
So I was a student representative for about 2.5 years. 2.5 years as in counting, but 2.5 years in when it comes to, you know how we count the semesters here?
Absolutely.
Yes, so it's pretty much 3 to 4 years.
3 to 4 years.
Yes, in college. So it was honestly the best experience of my
quite long.
undergraduate.
It's quite
Yes,
long.
It is quite long.
That's good. So
Sort of like Museveni's time.
okay. So guys, we have all heard, and you could see that our guest of the day, she is someone that is almost all round because she's an advocate, AU intern. She was also a former student leader, and currently she's a law graduate. So which means that this is someone with brains actually. And Nyamal, I'm kind of worried. We are the most connected generation currently, but yet the most lost, right? Are we lost or we are just rising? Let's delve into that, because if you look currently, the generation that we are in the country, there is too much pressure to make it. We have expectations from the family, right? There is pressure from our peers, right? And societal pressure as well, cultural practices, they are pressurizing us to be able to do some things that we feel they are not also well with us, you know? As well, your friend can be doing well currently in life. Maybe it's someone that you grew up together, but then at the other side of the room, you are not doing well, you know? And such might pressurize you to do other things. Or are we just lazy or tired? Because, you know, these are things that I feel like we should talk about. Looking into the wider aspect of the youth in our country, majority are not favored. The system is not designed in a way that can be able to favor people, you know? And this kind of questions will linger in their minds and be like, is this country meant for me? Is this what our fathers fought for, right? So these are the kind of things that most of the youths are asking themselves. Are we lost? Because if you look at even in the cultural practices right now, majority of the people, they are leaving our cultural aspects, they are modernizing, right? So they are leaving even at some point you might find someone, they will deny even their ethnicity, right? Those things are there. So are we just lost as a generation, or we are rising out of what we are made of or came from?
Oh, that's a very, very deep question.
Yeah.
I'll try as much as possible to answer it in the best way that I can.
Yeah.
So to be born in this generation, it's honestly the greatest honor of our lives.
Right.
It's such a blessing to be so connected. You have all the information at your disposal. So you get to have all of these instruments to build skills and to make something of yourself. But then at the same time, being so connected has, very much led to a rapid globalization, which in other words could also be westernization. And for us, the Africans, or because we're speaking from an African perspective, it has put us in a place where we're basically at crossroads. We do want to be civilized, want to be modernized, and somehow the image of what modernization means is to be like the Westerners and all of this.
Yeah, sure.
And yet at the same time, we also have a pressure to have connection to our roots,
Yes.
So in the attempt to catch up with the rest of the world that has left us for so many years, we often jump and go straight into copy paste who they are without necessarily understanding their values, where they come from and how they are the way they are. So at the end of the day, we end up messing up, because I cannot be a white woman. I don't know how a white woman is the way she is, how she sees the world the way that she does, and how she is doing the things that she is doing. But straight up, I want to be like her. I want to be a CEO. I want to dress the way that she does and all of this stuff. So, but then I think instead of defining globalization in its most extreme version, I would like to look at it as a space where different cultures are being connected, right? So when we have this in mind, it reminds us to come with our culture. We have to come to the globe with our culture. Otherwise, we will be, easily tossed around. We go this way, we go that way, without any sense of direction, So, for instance, the thing that you mentioned earlier about denying even your own ethnicity.
Absolutely.
Yes. Back in Uganda, I remember there was this girl that had just come from Ethiopia.
Yeah.
She's Nuer.
Yeah.
And she had only been there for like 3 years or something.
Okay.
And then she starts to act like she cannot speak Nuer. So
weird.
And, she's having this accent, this crazy accent that does not have the vocabulary.
Okay.
So I'm not sneak dissing or anything.
Okay.
But it was a very, very sad thing for me to watch, because at the end of the day, every culture, the people that are ahead of us in life, for example, the Europeans and whoever else, they want people to come into their culture. They're not trying to sell their culture for, any other, right? So there is a pride in knowing who you are. There's a pride in knowing your language. There's a pride in knowing your culture, your food, because that is part of your identity. But then somehow we have been convinced that if we erode that, then now we are modern, now we are civilized, which is, honestly, frankly, it's like the most, it's a lie, basically, it's a lie. So I really think that we have to strike a balance, because at the end of the day, we do want to catch up with the rest of the world. We do want to learn how to use this, technologies that are being invented. We want to be able to compete, with the rest of the world. But at the same time, we want to be able to have a grip on our culture. We need to have a grip on our roots, because that is who we are and that is what we bring to the table. So I think we have to strike a balance in that. And then I think you have to expound a little bit more on the question. There was another aspect.
Lost or rising?
Yes, in terms of the pressure to be something.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to use my own personal experience.
Okay.
So I remember in first year, getting into law school, there is this pressure that you have. You've been put in a room of the smartest kids from their class, right? So everybody is the smartest in the room. But then ultimately there is a question of who is going to be the best of the best, right? So there is a kind of anxiety, a psychological toil that it takes on you when you are competing with somebody that is outside of you, not yourself. So what happened is, some realized it sooner, that the only person you have to compete with is yourself, but then others took a little bit longer than the others to realize that. And the competition drained them, because law school is one of the most physically and mentally challenging experience, honestly.
More than engineering school?
I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know. But then if I was put in an engineering class, it would most likely be harder for me than it was in law school. Because I don't do math.
You don't do math?
I don't. So that pressure in itself, it does not make you better, it actually breaks you even more. So I really think that what we have to ask ourselves is, if somebody, for example, asks you a question, are you left behind? The question is, behind who, right? Honestly, you don't have to be pressured by another person's timeline. We are between the age of 20 to 30. And a lot of people who are between the age of 20 to 30 in other countries have cars. They have built houses. Someone at the age of 21 in the United States, someone that has invested, they have millions in their account. Does that make me any less of a person? I don't think so. So at the end of the day, we have to know that the real race is in how much you can be able to contribute to society. It's not as in when you are able to do things, right? So I really think that, hope shouldn't be found in comparing yourself with the other people. Even when you're successful and then you compare your success in light of another person's failure or success, you will never truly be satisfied with what you're doing. So I really think that we're not behind in life. We just have different timelines, and we have to, appreciate the pace at which we are moving. As long as there is momentum and you haven't just sat there, you should honestly appreciate yourself. Wow. You should. You have to just keep moving, one foot in front of the other, and you're not behind. You're not behind.
That's so great. I think that's a great submission. And coming to my own side, I think if we talk about lost, it's just a matter of where we have actually been brought up from. In most cases, if you're brought up in a kind of a family that is maybe too much, expecting a lot. Currently there are a lot of expectations from our families for us to make it, in life. And also, perhaps if we are raised far away from home, there are a lot of things, there are a lot of things that we can kind of end up emulating or getting from the other cultures that we end up living with in the far end. And at the end of the day, we bring such practices home. So with that, they end up saying that, so and so is lost. Actually, a practical example is how we could even, if we go home right now, deep inside the village, So your uncles, your aunts who are deep inside the village, the grandmas and the grandpas, everyone, they'll just say that one is either Kawaja is a white person, Yeah, because they have this perception that if the person that is coming from town is either lost or they have, I don't know how they like perceive us, but they just feel like maybe for lack of a better word, I can say that there is some immorality aspect in it. Yeah, I can in the wordings, because the way in which they phrase us or they picture us, it's not that kind of giving, because they feel like we have deviated from our foundings, from the way the ancestral practices we have left them behind. I think that's how lost, how the people in the village can define someone that is lost. And I feel like if you come into the town setting, someone that is lost, most of the cases they'll be like, that guy is doing drugs, So these people that do drugs, they feel like this person is lost. It's like they don't know whatever that they are doing in life. So moving with bad company, things like, because if you look into the current generation, majority of the people, they have so been hyped up in drugs. I don't know what's so good about it. I think next time we should have someone that does that in this podcast, so that
you'd be exposing them to the law.
Oh, really? I'm sitting with the law. I forgot they wouldn't want that. Okay, but low-key, we wouldn't tell our viewers that this person does such and that. But I think it will be glad for us to also hear their own side of the story. So the society tend to perceive them as people that are also lost. And also, if we look into this particular side of it also as well, we have people that, let's say, the night workers, yes, the night workers, majority of them are into the sex life, So, and also the society also perceives them that these are people that are lost, But I think each and everyone has their own side of the story as to why they could be lost, Someone might not be totally lost, but it could be lack of opportunity. I don't know, how do you feel about that?
Well, lack of opportunity is one of the things, honestly.
Okay.
You've described it in the best way possible.
Yeah.
But I also think that for them to be, at the end of the day, we do call them lost, but then I think it was a coping mechanism to begin with.
Okay.
For example, people that are doing drugs and alcohol and stuff, it's an escapism, right?
Yeah.
They're trying to escape the reality of their thoughts, right? And we, as the rest of the society that are also watching them from the sidelines, have a responsibility as to how they ended up there. Because maybe they haven't been given the space to be able to express bottled up emotions, trauma, all of these things. So without that space, without that awareness that has been, created in the society or community, we don't know how to handle them. So at the end of the day, they try to, escape these things one way or another. And drugs are a very easy way to honestly escape it, at least for the short time that you're high. You don't have any thoughts. You're not thinking about, I have to feed my family or anything like that. So I really think that it begins from, the point of view of where they are in their mind to end up there. And then with the sex workers, lack of guidance is also there. And as we already discussed, the whole pressure to be civil, to be modern, to be what?
To fit among.
Yes, to be the high-end urban girl or whatever.
Yeah.
So it starts slowly, you're introduced into a life, that you're trying to fit into that circle. And then at the end of the day, you sort of take it to the extreme ends. And then before you know it, you've lost all sense of direction. And then there you are at the street. I actually thought that this was very far from us.
Yeah.
As South Sudanese and as Nuer community until 2022 when, High Willet?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was in Addis Ababa and my cousin sister and I were waiting for her husband to come pick us up.
Okay.
We had spent the day together. It was around 8 to 9 p.m., not really that late. And then as we were standing there, 2 men from Nigeria drove towards us. Yeah. And they asked us a question in English. How much, ladies?
Was it the bride price or what?
No, it was definitely
the other language of the street.
It was definitely not the bride price. And I remember my blood boiling so much that I couldn't even speak.
Yes,
and then my cousin sister asked them a question. She said, why would you ask us such a thing? And his response made me realize the point that we have reached as a society. They told us, sister, we're so sorry, but your sisters have already sold you. This is normally where they stand, so we thought you were in the same business.
Wow.
And how sad is that, honestly?
Absolutely, it pains. The way you have like phrased it.
It was very, very sad. That was when it hit me that we've gone to the far end of, of societies. And I was always thinking, we South Sudanese are actually we're communal.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so basically, if town life has become unbearable, you've lost all money or any kind of hope, you could go to the community, go to them in the church, go to them wherever you can find them and tell them, you know what, people, please contribute for me money.
Yeah.
Let me start a business. Or if they can't do that, please get me money. Let me go back to the village and, live there with my family or something like that.
Sure.
But then it's a lot more complicated than that. It's not really as easy as that. So it's not far from us. It isn't.
It's not. I think each and everything that is happening in the modern world, we are facing it in one way or the other. Even if it won't come into light right now, a day or two, people will get to know about it. And so the other aspect of being lost, I feel like the whites right now, they like our culture more than even they like theirs, right? Because we have attires, we have cultural dances. And recently at the Mundare Cultural Festival, I think it was something that was enjoyed by almost everyone in the country back home. And this is something that maybe we should as other communities in the country, because, our culture is our pride, right? And even if we get lost, we shouldn't get lost to an extent whereby we forget where we are coming from, right? I believe, and I have a feeling like with this kind of trend that is ongoing, we might lose our culture completely. But right now you can see that from the languages, a lot of words, they're losing their own meaning, English, Arabic being mixed together, whatever language, okay, you use Nuer, you use Dinka, Bari, all these particular languages, you mix them. So there are a lot of new words that are coming out, right? That is just like the other cultural aspect of the language itself, being lost gradually. And if I come to a point of where people are getting lost, I feel like right now there is too much, like, how's it called? People are faking life in social media, right? People are faking life. Right. People are faking life on social media to an extent. They feel like they have made it, right? But in the reality, they haven't made it. There is a post I came across. I think it was on X.
How do you know that they have not made it?
No, they have not made it. Like, they have not made it. So they have not made it in life. And they say that the only bad background right now is poverty. And when I check the comment section, people are saying that it's because a lot of people, they fear posting themselves on how their home background looks like. They don't want to display to the rest of the world how reality things are, because now people are fond of lavish lifestyle. They want to show the society that they have actually made it, But the reality is there are a lot of struggles there. People have slept without food. Then they end up posting that, I'm doing well. You go to WhatsApp, you see their status and everything. Facebook, I think that's the media that's being consumed a lot of people in the country. So you go and check there, just people enjoying life. And that kind of tend to give a sort of pressure to the viewers, or to the followers or the friends of such individuals that see how their life goes on a daily basis. And in that, if you are not privileged enough to be able to afford such lifestyle, you might even end up, running to the other end, do something that is illegal just to compensate for the needs of the ones that the other fellow is having, for you to fit into the community. I think those are kind of such things, I feel like the trend is too much currently. Even the relationship aspect of it, there is too much trend right now in the country. People are posting themselves with, you see the girlfriend, boyfriend, they're kissing themselves, they put on the media. Well, like, since when did we lose it? Since when? Because I don't know if our parents, like, they're integrating into the modern world, or is it that these are people that without parents? Because as for me, there is no brother that will tolerate, like, with the South Sudanese thing in you. I think there's no brother who will tolerate, like, maybe your sister to go on media and record their romantic moment with the other side. No one would actually would want to see it. These are things that we know do happen, right? But do it, without it being displayed in the country. I think, I don't know, are we lost there or what? Because people right now, they're integrated to the aspect of the relationships are being much more exposed. People are posting whatever they want. And the other thing, the people that are copy-pasting, since also I post their girlfriend, I, myself, I'll also go to the board and also post. I don't know, are we being lost there, or we are doing what? Because I believe that our parents, for you to see your dad posting your mom is an issue. It's an issue. I don't know how you feel about that one.
But honestly,
Yeah.
we are lost. We are lost in that aspect.
Yeah.
We're very, very much lost. But then the good news is that there are, platforms such as this one that you have already established.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's such a great thing that you are doing this podcast.
Thank you.
Because it's going to bring light to the consequences that we often don't talk about.
Yeah, sure.
So social life, social media,
Yeah.
everything is vanity on there. It's cars, it's what, everything,
Yeah.
So like people only post their lavish life. They don't ever post the bad
The
days.
reality.
And it is never going to be a space where we post the bad days. Honestly,
Sure.
if we come to agreement with that, it is not going to ever be a place where you proudly post your posho and beans when people are eating chicken and whatsoever.
Yeah.
So like at the end of the day, what
Have
we
you ever
have
seen
to be
someone
focused-
posting portion beans?
only when they want to talk about school life and body
Yeah. Okay.
and all this, but they're not as
But not
they
like
don't
a cuisine
romanticize
they
it or
eat
like
in the
genuinely.
restaurant.
Yeah,
Okay.
people are not genuine on social media.
Media.
They're not genuine on social media, which again, it's something that we have to keep in mind when we're having this social pressure to be like them,
Yeah, sure, yeah.
or to be like anybody out there, and then we have to fake life. The thing is, we have to realize that everyone is just faking it, right?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, we have to reduce on the pressure to be like them or to, put those things out there. And then in terms of the relationship posting
Yeah.
and all this, I think we have to shed light to digital footprints,
Absolutely.
honestly. And with relationships in our time, they're very, very
Fragile.
very fragile. Yes, fragile is the
Yeah.
word. Very temporary.
Yes.
So you want to make sure that you really know what you're doing and you post those things out there on social media.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, when you're somebody else, you're, let's say, a renowned politician or something, these
Yeah.
things are going to be used to
They'll resurface
blackmail you.
again.
They will resurface.
Yeah.
Or even if they may not, become such a big saga online or something,
Yeah.
in your relations with people, human beings do judge subconsciously without even, deciding to judge.
Yeah.
So they will judge you and how people will interact with you, how they will respect you and all of this. It all goes back to, who you used to be back then on social media. So you really want to make sure that if you're going to post anything on social media in terms of your relationship, I would advise highly not to, unless you're married to this person and you're posting important things like, your first kid, birthday, graduation, things like that.
Yeah.
But then if you're going to post anything romantic, it should
Yeah.
be with somebody that you're married to. Otherwise, with these temporary relationships, it's such a risk.
Absolutely.
It's
They always say that the digital space doesn't forget
It doesn't.
each and everything that is
Could never,
loaded
yeah,
there.
could never.
Okay, to wrap the question up on the lost aspect of our conversation, I have a feeling like the people that are faking life on social media and those like denying their own cultural backgrounds and also their practices as well, these are the kind of people that are contributing to how the situation is kindly worsening in the country, be it the moral aspect of it or reach any other angle that maybe you can view this particular argument or discussion. Because if you post something that isn't the reality, I'll be motivated to do or to have what you have, Yeah. And those are the kind of things I feel like we should eradicate in the community. We should live authentic life. We should also have the real part, because I feel like people are posting more reels, than the real aspect of life that they are living currently, So as also a society that is too much into media currently, we should also utilize this media on a positive note, not to be able to mislead others into things that they themselves, as they call the influencers or the so-called gurus, don't have. So I think that's how we will end that particular part. But coming to the rise part, what is your view? The rising part, because if we are lost right now, we must also rise. Yes, we must also rise. So how do you feel like, how can we get out of this particular mud or this particular hole, right? Yeah, all this particular mess, how can we get out of it? Are we rising as a generation, or are we continuing to get lost into it?
I think to rise, I think we have to make the most use of all that we have at our disposal.
Yeah.
As you mentioned earlier, we're the most connected generation, right?
Yeah.
So we have social media at our disposal. We have books at our disposal. We have mentors, really. We have church. We have a lot of, information that is at our disposal on how we can even, improve in our lives, in our personal lives. We have self-improvement books. We have, all of these opportunities that are out there. There are links. We have LinkedIn, for instance. It's a space where you can be able to, grow as a person, meet with the right people, network, and then, improve in whichever area it is that you're a professional at. So I really think that we just have to take use of the tools that we already have, grow in our skills, make the right connections, read the right books, and ultimately, when we move as a person, as an individual, when you rise as an individual, and then I rise as an individual, and the number just keeps on going, we will, as a society, come back to,
Absolutely, that is true. And also, I have a submission, like in a practical aspect of it, like if we talk about the rise part, I feel like we should be much more realistic in life, For example, right now, let's just assume that my parent or guardian doesn't have all the necessities, to take me to that particular luxurious school and into such settings whereby kids are enjoying, they're having phones, So for me, so I wouldn't like pressurize them, or pressure them to look for fees from nowhere. And I know the reality is maybe their salary is just £100,000 a month. So with such, I should be much more appreciative, because I feel like the much more we appreciate, the much more appreciate the people that are taking care of us. I think with time we'll even appreciate much more in life, because everything just grows gradually. Things don't happen like out of nowhere, because there is too much expectation from parents right now. We don't know, most people don't know that our parents are just like any other human being. They are just people like us. They can lack, they do lack, and at most cases they can't show us that they lack, For example, right now, as a man, we are supposed to be strong, You go to job, you come back home, you have nothing. Maybe perhaps you left kids in the morning with your wife. There's nothing for them like to use as lunch, to make lunch with it, or even dinner, and you went and hustled, you got nothing, If you come home in the evening, you cry, you lose it. Everyone will lose it, right? I'm trying to imagine such kind of a family setting. Everyone will lose it, and they will know that actually there is no future and there is no hope. So we should be able to appreciate life in general and all that it gives us. And the other part of it, I feel like, we should ask for more from our governing institutions, so that we don't get lost completely, like look into, there should be much more, I feel like there should be much more law enforcement into things like to do with drug and substance abuse. Also, the other part of it is that also the cultural communities, there should be too much bonding even between the two of them, so that the split isn't that much, So the unity should be kept something that is there. And also I feel like we should also have like civic education on how to be able to use social media, because if you look into our current generation, a lot of people don't even know how to use media. That is some part of it. People, like you just stated earlier, that most of the relationships are fragile currently, and you cannot be able to tell what is happening tomorrow. You post yourself with your partner today, and it is in the archives. Tomorrow what happens? Misunderstandings. So once a misunderstanding happened, people are gone. Yeah. And with your romantic moments online, I cannot come to marry you.
Them, somebody may have downloaded it.
Absolutely true. Nowadays, you post something, people are there, they save it, right? When it's like, it will resurface like 10 years later, and at that particular time, you might be like, the new me. You are this kind of person that is like a motivational speaker. You are this person people are looking up to in life. And even if like you have already risen past your obstacles, such a video, once it resurfaces again, it can really break you down, into a mess. So these are kind of things. I don't know how you feel about that.
I agree with you, honestly.
Yeah.
I agree with you. But then in order to, just to comment a bit on the having to ask our government for more, I think before we go to the government, we need to find a space where we can unite as youth that
Absolutely.
are informed and, are trying to figure this out. There are Twitter spaces, for instance,
Yeah.
but then there's not really specific places where we have a dialogue that leads up to influencing the decisions that are being made in our government. So I think we have to have more, whether NGOs, associations, platforms where we, the youth, can be able to come together, advocate for our rights, learn, create awareness, because the government is not actually going to give us the civic education that we need. As you mentioned earlier, that we should have civic education, but the threat to a government such as ours is informed civil societies.
Yeah.
So they are not going to give us, the courses that we need to learn to be able to stand up against them or to be able to point out the gaps in their governance. So we do have to figure it out by ourselves, which is we have to come together, find places, whether it is social media, platforms, podcasts such as these, come together, pretty much come together and, create the awareness from the books that we are, learning, from the exposure that we have had with other countries. For example, you have grown up in Kenya, I have been to Uganda, we are now here in Ethiopia.
Yeah.
So like we've seen how the Ethiopian government is, being checked by the society, because the Ethiopian civil society, they are very educated. So at the end of the day, we have to pick up on how are they doing this? How are they able to influence, the government? So we do have to work on that.
Absolutely. I also feel to an extent that, the more we become informed as a society, the better income we get also as a community as a whole, because the more informed we are, it means that the more united we are as a generation, and also our bargaining power in the seat of like authority also, the weight also increases, which means that they will dance to our tune in each and everything that we'll say. But currently I can say that our bargaining power is too weak. Yeah, because we don't have unity, and we also, most of us are less informed, and majority of people don't even know their rights, in the country.
The already available platforms are also very afraid to call a spade a spade.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
So in many Twitter spaces, for instance, or posts, or what is it called, groups, they are very afraid to call the political status for what it is.
Yeah.
To call the government for what it is.
Yeah.
And to be able to even find a solution to a problem, you need to name the problem.
Yeah.
You need to name the problem. If it is a wound that is from a burn, you have to name it. If it's from an accident, you have to name it. So basically, I think we have to work more on honesty. We're not honest. We're not a genuine society or a genuine youth. We're informed, yes, but then we're so afraid to even, call things the way that they are. And this is also a very big impediment in how we can be able to unite. Because in order to unite, we have to be able to tackle the root. We tackle it and, call it for what it is.
And for us also to be able to rise as a generation, it means that we have to, they say that asking for an appetizer doesn't prevent you from asking for your main dish, Yeah. So if we ask for something from the government, so it means that it is our duty and our rights, so that for us to demand for spaces that will enable us to be able to rise, because we all know that our country wasn't liberated for it just to be ruled by the people that liberated it, Yeah, it is our rights as the people or the youth to be included, and also for them to make systems that will work for us, systems that will be able to favor us,
systems that will also compete with the rest of the world.
But currently, such, it's like a deadbeat conversation. It's almost nowhere or even not seen.
People don't talk about it.
Yeah, so such, I think those are the kind of things that we should be able to ask for from our government, and we'll see the way forward. The problem, we can't rate that they aren't doing it for us because we haven't demanded it for it officially. So it's good that also we give them the advantage also of the other side. We have failed also as a generation to be able to demand for what is rightfully ours. We will be biased if we just accuse them of not doing it, because if we ask for it, we write papers, we come online, we say that we need this as the youths of the country, we need systems that work for us, we convene a meeting and such things. This whereby then the conversation now will get heated and get into the highest seat. They'll be like, what? Let's design something and give a plan for our youths of the country so that they can be able to strive. Be it that
or at least they'll be intimidated to proceed with the violations that they're making, even if they won't give us a solution, immediately.
Yeah.
But then it will also sort of check them to be careful how they how they violate the rights of the people.
Absolutely.
Because they will know, people are aware, they know what they're doing, they know what we are doing, so we have to be more careful, or at least seize it to some extent.
Rising as a generation, it won't be that even comfortable, We have to face a lot of challenges. It won't even be that maybe conducive, because whenever we want things, so for you to demand from another party, not everything will go to your expectation, So they have their own interests, and for that particular person to protect their interest, they must do something to ensure that they don't give you fully whatever you want, you know? And this is where the bargaining comes right now. And that's why I think that if we unite much more as youths of the country, we demand for our rights, that's when we can hold the government accountable that they have failed us. But currently, we are lagging behind. And that's whereby there is too much blame game, you know, in the space that the government isn't doing things for us, but we haven't come like collectively as a community or as a generation to be able to sit down and say like, Yamal, what do you want? What do you think that should push us forward? Or what can take you to the next step?
I think it's because the moment you speak up, they give you something. Because, you know, and then after 2 months, you're saying SPLM.
Yeah.
But then we have to be able to rise above that.
Yeah, absolutely. That is true.
Collectively.
That's true. And for us to rise also as a generation, you know, it has to be like a collective thing. There are a lot of aspects that we can be able to lead us into rise, educational wise, into the health sector. So it's just so diverse. Rising cannot be able to be, for us, we cannot be able to define it in one angle, you know. Yes. Yeah, it has to be that diverse. But we have talked about the challenges that we face earlier on into the lost part of it. But as a country, we must try as much as possible, also the generation, to be able to get out of such spaces, you know. Yeah. So also, I believe there is hope out of all these challenges. We must be able to embrace and know that there is a greater future ahead of us and greater things will be there for us. Inshallah. And I think greater things are away for us, and inshallah things work for the better society. Things won't just come out of the blue, but we must work hard as a generation, get educated, get skills, then appreciate, confront as well, you know your rights. You shouldn't just keep quiet, you know. I think those are the kind of things that will be able to push us forward. What's your submission as we conclude?
Well, honestly, I'm just very, very grateful to be here and to be able to talk about this. And I'm wishing you the best as we go on, because I know that this is the beginning of, you know, a potential
space.
Not necessarily space, a potential movement. Let me put it that way.
Thank you.
Because, you know, I've seen a lot of podcasts. I've seen them on, you know, in South Sudan, and they rarely talk about things like this.
Absolutely.
Yes, they rarely talk about things like this. And you to begin this, and for me to also be, you know, your first guest talking about this, I'm very, very honored. And I'm hoping that you will proceed with this kind of spirit. And, you know, whoever it is that you invite next and you talk to, you will bring this to the attention of the public. And
Absolutely.
I really, I'm grateful and I'm hopeful about this.
Thank you. Yes. What message of hope do you have for our audience?
For our youths, the message of hope is, there's a lot of messages of hope, but I'm not here to give unrequited advice. So the thing is, I know that we are pretty much, you know, in the worst place to be. When you check the charts, for instance, South Sudan is the most corrupt country in the world.
Yes, sure.
But then the good news about all of this is, where there is a problem, there is purpose. Sure. So for us to be born of war, for instance, there is a kind of conviction that it creates. It shapes your purpose. It gives you strength. It gives you resilience, you know. So it is actually a good thing that we are born into a time that is so tough like this. Because it gives us a solution. It gives us a purpose to look for a solution, you know, and to be a part of a solution. So imagine if you were born in a world where everything was okay. Useless, basically, right? To be in that space where all you do is eat, sleep, grow, and nothing else. So I really think that we should embrace this, and then we should use that to our advantage to be a part of a solution in whichever way that we can. We're all very, very gifted and very smart, and I really think that we could be onto something. So that's what I can say.
Wow. Yamal, we are glad that you have been on our show.
Thank you.
May God bless you.
Thank you so much.
And keep you as you do your internship at the AU as well, and continue advocating for the child rights. To our audience outside there, we say thank you for watching this particular episode and also reaching this particular minute. So make sure that you do anything necessary to be able to push us into the next step. So from us here at Julumna Podcast, we say thank you for being with us. Bye.